Hey everyone, welcome to the Ratitude Podcast. I am deeply honored and excited to welcome our guest here, Dave Scatchard. He is a former NHL player. For those that don't know what NHL means, it's the National Hockey League. He's a professional athlete that we've got on our show. And Dave, welcome to the Ratitude Podcast.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. Let's rock and roll.
Yeah, for sure. I could see your jerseys behind you, and I read a little bit about you and all the wonderful things that you've done and overcome and written books about, and now you've got a new career. So tell us a little bit about just kind of growing up in Canada. You know, we know all hockey players come from Canada, right? And it's kind of cold there, and you're now living in Arizona. It's kind of hot there, right?
You know, I was blessed to have a wonderful family. My dad was sort of my mentor and my idol. He started off as a physical education teacher, and then he went into working in the coal mines. And he worked in the coal mines in Alberta, in Canada. My town was about 5,000 or 6,000 people. There was one hockey arena. There's lots of outdoor frozen ponds and frozen rinks that I grew up playing on. And that was sort of where my love for hockey developed. But yeah, I didn't come from a lot. We didn't have a lot of money or a lot of extra stuff, but I always had everything that I needed, you know, to a certain extent. And, you know, I think growing up with such a great example from my dad, he was just a good person. He was honest. He had good principles. He had high standards. He expected a lot. He was almost like a military dad, but he grew up on the farms, you know, in Canada. And he never, ever told me I couldn't do something. And he was kind of an adrenaline junkie. He was one of the first guys that ever had a hang gliding license in Canada. And back then, those kites that they used to jump off mountains with were like metal death traps.
Yeah.
He was fearless. And so you can imagine as a young boy seeing my dad run and fly off a mountain, like he was so crazy and ballsy that I thought, wow, like he's the real deal. He can fly, you know? And my whole life, he told me I could accomplish or become or do anything that I wanted. And, you know, we'll get to this later, but I did a lot of work with Tony Robbins. He was sort of my mentor later in life. And, you know, my dad would tell me things that Tony would repeat like 30 years later. And I have no idea how my dad had that insight or that knowledge growing up on the farms, you know, not really doing personal development. But he would have me visualizing, he would have me, you know, reverse engineering goals and goal writing. And I don't know where he learned it because like he didn't really have that influence from his dad either. So I think he was ahead of his time. My father, and he just loved doing hard things, and he loved the challenge, and it was never work to him. It was always like, let's see if we can do this, you know. And there's a funny story in my book, The Comeback, My Journey Through Heaven and Hell. I tell where my dad and I, this is years later, I'm in the NHL, and it's my first summer home, and we're having beers, and we're sitting on the beach, and I look across the lake, which is about 2 miles across, but I didn't know at the time. And I said, I wonder how far that is to the other side. I wonder if I could swim that far. My dad just looked at me, had a sip of his beer, and he goes, well, there's only one way to find out. And I just walk in with my big baggy board shorts, no swimming goggles, no cap. And I started swimming, and I'm okay swimmer, but I'm not a great swimmer. And I've never swam 2 miles before. And, I remember that was just stuff that we did. And then before I knew it, the canoe was pulling beside me, and he's talking to me, and he's just making sure I don't get run over by boats. But we'd do these little games with each other all the time. Like, I wonder if you could do that. And then we would just try stupid stuff. And
what a great way to grow up.
Yeah, there was no fear of failure. And he really made you to believe you can do anything. And I think one of my gifts as a life and business coach now is that my clients, some of them believe in themselves, but some of them borrow my belief in them until they gather the courage and confidence to be able to go and do those things. And it's fascinating what the human mind can do when it has belief or hope. And, you know, there's a great story that I heard in church actually, and the pastor was talking about the study with mice or rats, and they wanted to see how long that they could tread water for before they drown. And they had one study with 5 or 6 rats, and they put them in a bucket, and I don't know what the number was. After 12 hours, they drowned. Okay. The other study, at 10 hours, they lifted the rats out for 5 seconds and then put them back in. And those rats treaded water for 18 hours. And they had the hope or the belief that something was going to come and lift them out again.
Yeah.
And that was enough to get another 5 or 6 hours out of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the mind and hope and belief and faith are extremely powerful. And the words we say to ourselves and our subconscious are way more powerful than I think they're ever given credit for.
As you were growing up, Dave, and then, playing hockey, obviously you're at a very high level, go to play at the NHL. Did you use those techniques in your playing career already, or did they come later when you learned from Tony Robbins?
No, man. Like, since I was a little boy, I would draw hockey players and say that I was going to play in the hockey NHL. I have no back, like my dad didn't play hockey, like nothing. So like, I don't know. I watched the Edmonton Oilers growing up in Alberta, and they won 4 Stanley Cups in a row. And I'm sure.
With Wayne Gretzky there.
Yeah. And the funny thing is Wayne was my coach when I came to Phoenix, Grant Fuhr's the goalie coach.
Wow.
All these guys are my friends now, Marty McSorley. I was just at his house in Newport recently in Manhattan Beach. But I visualized everything, every single thing that I have, down to this house, down to my wife and my 3 kids, my one girl, my 2 boys. I've been able to visualize and manifest this stuff. And sometimes it doesn't happen quite the way that you think it's going to happen, but then it ends up happening later. And you're like, wow, I actually did it. It wasn't the way that I thought it was going to happen, but having that belief can carry you. So yes, as a young boy, at different levels, at different goals. And my dad, this is a really good life lesson for your listeners, is one time I said I wanted to play in the NHL. And he said, okay, well, I think I was 7 or 8. And he goes, how far are you away from what those guys can do? Like, what's the difference? And I'm like, well, I'm 8. They're 220 pounds, I'm 70 pounds, They're faster, they're stronger, they shoot the puck harder, all these things, right? I wrote down a whole list of what I was missing. And then he said, what's one area that you think you could be in control of right now, that if you did it every day, it would move you closer to your goal of playing in the National Hockey League? And I said, well, if I shot 100 pucks in the backyard every single day, that would be 3,000 pucks a month. That would be 36,000 pucks a year. And I'm 8. So if I played when I was 20, that would be 12 years times, which is whatever. You know what I mean? I began shooting these pucks. And the rule was, it was every day. So rain, shine, hail, whatever. And there were days when it was raining so badly or snowing so badly, I couldn't find the pucks in the snow. After I missed the net, it was raining and I'm so soaking wet that my gloves are barely hanging onto the stick. But it built this resilience in me where I said to myself, like, nobody else is doing this right now. None of my competition is outside in the freezing snow shooting right now. So I'm getting a lead on these guys, and these are my competition for future things. I did that my whole life. I would train so hard that I'm like, nobody did what I did today. I just passed. If 1 million people are trying to make the NHL, I just passed 20,000 because I got in 5 extra days of training that they didn't get in. You know what I mean? So I would always do that for marketing. I got my 2 Comma Club award here for selling $1 million in a funnel. I got my Ironman, which I completed a 140-mile Ironman race after never being able to walk 5 years before. I was so debilitated after my head injuries that I couldn't even function. I was like a vegetable almost. So the answer to your question is yes. For some reason, I've been able to see things, and I've been able to reverse engineer what strategies am I going to need? What traits, what characteristics, what qualities do I not have right now? If I want to make $1 million marketing, I got to learn marketing. I don't know how to market. So I got to go pay a coach and invest in that and have him teach me, and then follow his example because he's already done it before. Ironman. I don't know how to do an Ironman. But why don't I go hire the coach that's got all the world champions and have her explain to me how I got to have nutrition and stuff? Like I would never have finished this race, especially in the time that I did, without like eating salt. And I ate like 4 tubes of base salt. I drank Gatorade Endurance, and in a 12-hour race, that's all I ate for 12 hours. Like if it was me doing it, I would have been eating all the snacks and I have to go to the bathroom and doing all these things. Like she's like, no, that's not what you do. This is what so getting myself in the right rooms with the right people and the right coaches. Michael Jordan has coaches, Tiger Woods has coaches, everybody that you know has, Michael Phelps has coaches, everybody has a coach. So why not allow them to guide you and show you the way? You know, you and I wouldn't go hike Everest without a Sherpa that's been up there a bunch of times. I've invested over $1 million in my own training and coaching and healing and all these things so that I can get to this point that I'm at now. But, you know, at first I never even knew what a coach was. I didn't know why anybody would ever have a life coach or business coach. Like, what's the point? You know, I'm good. I'm doing good. Well, no, man, it's like a whole nother level. And that's the beautiful thing is now I get to share all these things that I learned all over the place with people and see the results and see them winning. And then I'm just like, wow, this is incredible. Like it all works.
Yeah. Yeah. No, so you had coaches, your athletic coaches, just as I did. But for me, it wasn't until I went to my very first Tony Robbins event, and I didn't even know who Tony Robbins really was. And he said, high performance people have coaches. And he said, I have like 5 coaches. And I go, oh, I was raised that if you asked for help, that was a sign of weakness. And I mean, that day I signed up with my very first coach, and now I have 5 coaches in different areas of life, and life has become magical. When did you discover the need for beyond athletic coaches?
You know, I don't want to get dark, but when my career was over, it had some bleeding in my brain, microhemorrhaging in my brain, and it really affected my cognitive function. I had difficulty speaking. I had difficulty walking and moving my body. Loud sounds and bright lights would incapacitate me. I'd have migraines every day of my life. It was a horrendous way to live. After the Mayo Clinic had labeled me permanently disabled, and they said, hey, bud, we don't have any more protocols to try. Like, this is just how you're going to be. And I was like 35 years old. And I'm like, I'm going to be like this for the rest of my life. Like, I can't live like this. I will not. Like, I was in so much pain and so uncomfortable just existing that I'm like, it'd be easier just to check out, just to like leave this earth. And I have a beautiful wife and beautiful kids. I couldn't even be around my kids when they cry or do anything. It was so painful to have the sounds and stuff around me that I'm like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to? And I had 6 properties in 3 countries, probably, I've never said this out loud, but probably like around 10 or $12 million of real estate in different countries. And I was a genius at real estate when I was younger and I was playing. I'd buy everywhere I played and I buy luxury homes and stuff. I couldn't even read a real estate contract. My eyes would start to go across. I couldn't like concentrate long enough to get through the whole contract. And I'm like, man, I'm going to screw this up. Like everything I just built, I'm afraid I'm going to make a mistake. And I got a thing in the mail for a free coach or a coaching call. So I took it, and it was actually one of Tony's guys. So like I hadn't even done anything with Tony. I knew of him, but I never had done any of his programs. And then this guy said, hey, it looks like you're in a pretty rough spot. If and when you get better, what would you like to do with your life? I'm like, all I've ever done is play hockey. I skipped 2 grades when I was younger. I had a photographic memory. School was easy for me, but right now life was not easy for me. And I said, I don't know, man. I said, I don't know. I would like to help people not be in the pain that I'm in right now. If there's a way that I could figure it out. And he's like, great. And I said, I'd like to help kids too. I love helping kids. I like to help their track to the top in pro sports. And he goes, there's this thing called Leadership Academy. It's fantastic. They have a lot of really good psychology things and brain things and different like modalities and techniques to heal, you should check it out. So I get all geared up. I'm going to do this big 6-hour drive, which is a big deal for my brain at the time. And I had to pull over 3 times to sleep because it was so stressful for me. Wearing sunglasses, the sun bothered me, like silence because the radio bothered me. And I ended up getting to San Diego, and Tony's brother-in-law, Scott, Humphreys, comes over and he goes, "Hey," he goes, "you're Scatchard, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, I watched you play in Vancouver. I'm a big fan." And I said, "Oh, that's cool." He goes, "What's going on?" I said, "I can't even go in that room. It's so loud. There's so much sounds and people yelling and hugging and doing all this stuff." I said, I don't feel comfortable. And I said, honestly, it's driving me crazy. And I was like, had tears in my eyes. He said, "Listen," he goes, "why don't we sit you up in the front row with the platinum partners? And, it's a little less jam packed. You can sit on an outside row. You can leave anytime you want, and it gets too loud. And like, we'll try to work you in." I said, "Okay, great." I go, "When's Tony coming?" And he goes, "Oh, Tony doesn't do this event." And I go,
Oh,
"What?" I
oh,
go,
what event were you at?
I go, "He doesn't
Oh,
even do
that's
the event."
oh, that's right. Leadership Academy. He's not there.
No. And I go, "Come on." I said, "I just drove here to see Tony Robbins." So I called my wife that night. And she's like, "How's Tony?" I'm like, "Oh, he's not here." She's like, "What?" She was mad too.
Yeah.
But anyways, I had prayed for a couple of miracles, and driving there, because I said, I can't live another 50 years like this. I need some miracles. And I had 2 massive breakthroughs and miracles that weekend. And one of them was, I don't want to get into this long story, but one of them was this version where you go back and visit the purest version of your soul. And for me, that was like 5 years old. Actually, I was just on another podcast and I showed this. So this was the cape that I was wearing. My grandma just sent it down to me. She's 98. But I was wearing this cape and I had it around my neck, and I was flying around the campground like I was Superman, playing with my dogs, helping grandma, helping mom and dad. We were camping. I was in the river. I was chasing butterflies, and I was like just a light. I was just this loving light who wanted to help people. And then I fast forwarded to this hockey gladiator guy that used to have to fight a lot and use my body as a battering ram. And I couldn't even see this little guy in there. And I'm like, whoa, like, who am I? Like, who have I become? Because there's no connection to my true essence and my true soul. And I started to dig and remove all these layers of armor. The first time I got a spanking, the first time I got beat up, the first time I got bullied, the first time I got my heart broken, the first time was afraid of, leaving home at 15 years old to go play hockey, all these things, just stacks of like these little mini traumas that I'm such a sensitive soul, and I'm so naked and vulnerable that I had to stack up these layers of armor just to kind of continue moving forward, because everything was so painful when something bad would happen. But it was so much armor that I couldn't heal. The healing light and God's energy and everything that was going to heal me couldn't penetrate the armor because there was so much of it. So I do this exercise, I remove it all. At the end of it, I literally break free. I feel like I'm being washed and cleansed, and this kind of like message comes to me that everything's going to be okay, and then I'm going to heal. And then I get to little David underneath all this rubble, and I lift him up and I said, "I'm so sorry. I had to hide you, man. You would have been, you wouldn't have been able to do what we just did the last 20 years of our lives. But nobody's trying to hurt me or take my job or do anything like that. I don't have to fight anymore." So I said, "I think it's safe for you to kind of lead the way." And I placed little David, my purest version of my soul, above me and in front of me. And I asked him to guide me for the next steps of my journey. And it felt so weird to not be like the hard guy, not be the strong guy, not be the guy with no feelings or no, it was like completely opposite. I'm so sensitive and vulnerable. And I think a lot of men are afraid to go there because we've been taught certain things on, boys don't cry, or, don't be a pussy, or do, all these things. And it's programming, and it's not I don't want, my sensitivity is my gift. When I'm working on people, I can feel where they're at. I understand it. I asked God when I was brushing my teeth in the mirror that night, I said, why did you punish me for so long? And he said, I wasn't punishing you, I was training you. And I'm like, whoa, what a perspective change. I now understand what anxiety or fear, or hopelessness or depression feel like, because I lived in it for 3 years. And now when I meet a client and they're going through something, I've been at the top of the top and the best in the NHL, and I've been at the bottom of the bottom where it almost doesn't feel like I can live anymore. And I can meet them wherever they're at and show them the way out. And that's my gift. That's my superpower. And I'm so grateful for my injury. I'm so grateful that I get to do this, and we've helped 25,000 people have come through our programs and stuff. I'm so grateful that I have a life with purpose now that I'm done playing, and that it actually matters if I show up every day. And it's a blessing.
That's beautiful. They always say that, everything had to happen exactly the way it did for you to become the person you are today. And, all the challenges, the negative things that, everyone seems to have in their lives. And I want to continue on that, but I want to just kind of make it clear for our audience that, as a hockey player, you had multiple, I think it was 5 concussions.
And 5 diagnosed concussions.
Yeah. I get that.
The MRI shows 5 black spots on my brain. Who knows how many real concussions it had.
Exactly. But here, at least in the U.S., it's football that gets the bad rap for concussions. And, there's been movies made about it, and it's in the news quite often, but hockey's just as violent, if not more violent. But it sounds like you were even in the kind of position as a sort of enforcer that it puts you even in a bigger, situation where it's more likely to have concussions. Did your dad know that, for example, going into that? Did you know that going into that? How, in that day and age, did they talk about this?
No, never. Concussions weren't talked about. I remember being knocked out on the ice when I was younger, and, coming out of it rather quickly within a minute or so. And then like playing the rest of the game with just a terrible headache, and my eyes were hurting, and I healed really quick because I was a young guy and whatever, but like that nowadays they would protect the player a little bit more. My dad was the coach, and he's just like, hey, like he knew I was hurt, but he's like, hey, are you okay? And I would always just respond, yeah. And I just keep going. But like now they protect the player. But, I wasn't always an enforcer. I just kind of got into that role because I was always a pure goal scorer and all that when I was younger. But as you move up the ranks, everybody can score.
Yeah.
So sometimes the only way you can get on a team is to be the physical player or like whatever, because you're not going to score 50 goals. This guy's better than you, but I can still hit. I can still fight. I can win faceoffs. I can body check guys, like I can do all those things. So that was actually how I got my foot in the door. Is there's a player that scored 65 goals the year before in the minors, and he didn't make the team. And I scored 8 goals and only played 20 games out of 72 because I had 4 surgeries on my heels, and I made the team because they needed a physical player, not a goal scorer. They already had Mark Messier and Pavel Bure and all these superstars. So they needed a role guy like me.
Right.
And I could fit perfectly, and my timing was just amazing. Yeah. And somehow I made the team. It was a miracle.
Wow. And so you've gone through these multiple concussions, and you come out of it. You had 3 years of really challenging times. And then what happened to turn things around? You wrote a book about it, and kind of tell us a little bit more kind of post hockey.
Yeah. So I wrote my book, The Comeback, My Journey Through Heaven and Hell. And this was crazy because I didn't want to tell everything that had happened to me. I had a near-death experience. I didn't want people to think I was nuts, or that I something wrong, like I lost my mind or something. It was just the truth. And as I was writing, I kept trying to leave it out, and I didn't want to go there. And then God's just like, no, man, you gotta do it. This is why you're back. Yeah. So I get a second. I'm free rolling on life right now, Robert. Like, this is completely, my existence right now is not about Dave Scatchard on this earth. It is about me being a vessel and allowing things to channel through me and run through me, and me to help people. I shouldn't have come back if I had nothing to offer. So I tried to put as much in the book. I'm writing my second book right now. And, it was a wild journey. I worked with the biggest weirdos, and like I was in the Amazon jungle with shaman. I work with the Grand Master. I work with Tony. I work with energy workers. I work with healers. I work with monks. Like you name it, I've gone down that rabbit hole. And I took a little gold nugget or two from each of them and kind
Yep.
of brought that back with me. And I believe that that's why if I can't help a client like with the direct approach, I've got like 7 or 8 little side entrances where I can get in there and tweak a few things and help them be free and be liberated and feel like their old self and have more energy and start vibrating at a higher level and have some belief again. And like I said earlier, they either borrow my belief or they borrow my energy. I don't care what they borrow. It's like, this is what I'm built for. So I don't think I went through all that stuff just to like go and golf every day by myself. I don't think that's purpose.
Yeah. So with all your experiences with monks and shamans and all that, do you consider yourself an awakened or enlightened human being?
I believe that I am blessed with certain gifts to be able to see and know things that I don't think everybody has, but I also nurture them. I've had some incredible experiences, and when I'm at that highest frequency, I ask how I can stay connected to this, right? And the message always back to me is that I need to build in time for me to find that space in quiet on my own. And oftentimes for me, that's like 4 a.m. And I have to be honest, I'm just getting back into it now. But for like a year and a half, I would wake up and I would go do my prayer meditation and I would lose track of time and it'd be like 5:15 or whatever. And I'd go and, whoa, geez, what just happened? Like I was in like another world. And I come back and I'm like, okay, now what am I going to claim here today? I need to claim like something. So it's okay to fly and to go to connect to soul, but it's hard to really have impact here on earth. Tony called me a monk in my cave one time. He goes, listen, you're doing all this amazing transcendental meditation work and stuff. And he goes, I think it's beautiful and you're healing yourself, but you're like a monk in your cave. Like, who are you helping? You're not helping anybody. You got to bring that stuff back down here and make it like understandable and digestible. And Donnie Epstein, who's another mentor and he's Tony's main guy.
Yep.
He calls it coherent. I need to make the information coherent so that it's processable for everyone's data stream to pick up. Like, so if you've got a processor and I'm speaking at such a different language that you have no idea what I'm talking about, it just flies over your head. But if I can make that information coherent, then no matter what energy level you're at, you can process and digest some of it or all of it. And the higher levels you go, I believe the faster your processor goes.
Yep.
And then like all of a sudden things just start clicking. Like you're like, wow, this is rapid. This is fast. I'm playing like chess 3 moves ahead right now.
And you've got a retreat coming up. I'm not sure when this is going to go live, but you got a retreat going up. What happens in your retreats?
Oh,
Do you have people play a little hockey, get a little concussion? That way they can become enlightened?
Hey, it's unbelievable. So this next one, it's coming up September 13th to the 15th, but I've already had one a couple months ago and it was so powerful. And I've had like sales, like I've done all the gamut, but what was crazy was the last one that I did here. Everyone went such a high level. And when they left here, just money, deals, love, all these magical things started to happen for them in their lives. And we didn't even do sales training. We didn't even do like goal setting. Like we did a little bit, but it was mostly about taking care of their energy field and allowing them to take off their armor, like I explained earlier, and relax, settle in and realign and stop running around like a rat race and like literally let us take care of you. And I do breath work. I do meditation work. I've got a meditation table that the whole table vibrates as the music plays. It feels like you're levitating. It's so cool. I've got energy healers. I've got chiropractors that do network spinal analysis. I've got this energy block lady. She comes in and goes through scans your body and any energy blocks or things. So even emotional, like limiting beliefs or whatever, those leave. We do some switch patterns and some different things to annihilate some old patterns of limiting beliefs in myself. We've got cold therapy, hot therapy, saunas. We do a sunrise hike. We bring in the sound bowl healer the first night, like Friday night. Oh, that's the first time I worked with this girl. I found her on the internet through a referral. I go, I'm looking for an amazing harmonic healer. And like, boom, right away in my inbox, somebody sent me, you got to check this girl out. So I called her. Actually, I DM'd her and I said, hey, you don't know me. I see you live in Arizona. Will you come to my thing? She goes, actually, yeah, I have that time off. I'm like, wonderful. She comes, magic. Like, oh, and she put me, I'm the leader of the event, and she put me right in front of her bowls, her sound bowls, and it was vibrating through me so powerfully. I felt healing in my brain, in my head, and the whole night she was gone, and I felt like my whole body was still like humming. It was still tuned up.
Yeah.
So part of my beliefs are that like if you can tune up your energy field, it's almost like this antenna that goes up into the external field or higher place, and that it can process the data more easily because your antenna is up, it's the right alignment, you're aligned, everything's aligned, your work is aligned, goals are aligned, and your frequency is so high that it goes, oh yeah, I know that. Okay, great. Like, here's what you do. Here's your guidance. And that's the coolest thing is when you see somebody who's like off, they're like turned off when they come in and they're beat up and life's got them just down and whatever. And then you're like, oh, wait for 3 days and let's see what they leave with. And I had a girl here. She left her, this is just an example, but I had a girl here. She didn't have a lot of money. She literally took her last savings to like come here. And she ran away from an abusive husband with her 2 kids. He didn't give her any child support. She's trying to be a financial planner, but like nothing, it's not really working. And she took her last savings and came here and basically like said, help me. And she'd been doing like group stuff, like lower level group stuff with me. So I knew of her. This girl's transformation was so dramatic. And she goes home. She sends me a picture. She got a $20,000 commission 2 days after she goes home. Like, that's processed in an insane amount of time. She gets up, she meditates, she walks with her kids at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning now. They never used to do this before. She's completely flopped her routine. She eats healthy. She prays, she meditates, she works out. All these things she just never did. And she talks like a different person. It doesn't even sound like the same person that I met. That's the stuff, man. It's just like, why wouldn't I do this all the time? Like, right. I have to. I don't have a choice.
Yeah. What kind of advice would you give someone that comes from such an analytical place, like an engineer? Like I used to be, my first career was a chemical engineer. And so, this is a different world now. I'm a Joe Dispenza trainer now. We're in the 5th dimension and healing people. And people ask me, my engineer friends, like, what are you doing? Like, if you have someone, an engineer, analytical dude show up, how do you deal with that kind of person to get them to even consider or listen to you?
I think part of them wants to believe. They want to. They just don't know how, because that's not how their processor works. Yeah. So it's almost experiential in a way. And for me, if I have contact with somebody, like if I hold their hand or if I have my hand on their shoulder, I allow them to feel my field, and it's different. It's completely different. And I welcome them into my field, and it's a different field. And they're like, I feel really relaxed. I feel calm. I feel peaceful. I feel less stressed. Yeah. Okay, great. Do you like that feeling? Yeah. Are you open to exploring that some more? All right, let's start with some breath work. Let's start opening it up. Let's start with some visualization techniques. And immersive work, as you know, it speeds it up. Like if somebody's with you, or if you're in a Tony event for like 3 days or 7 days, like you go all the way in, you don't have a choice.
Yes.
For the rational brain, it's going to fight you and go back and forth like a whole bunch of times. But there'll be a point where it's like, well, maybe there's some stuff I don't know. I think I know everything. I think I know how it all works. But then you see a miracle in front of your eyes and you're like, how do you explain that?
Yeah.
I could show you videos of Donnie Epstein where he's working on people without even touching them, and their bodies are doing these weird arches, and it's fascinating, right? And then like I have a friend that's exactly like you're talking about, and he's a doctor, has this like, and he only is science and data. And I showed him this video, and he was so uncomfortable that he literally, we were at the baseball diamond with our kids. He literally just didn't say a word, and he just walked away because for him, that would blow up his entire model of the world because he doesn't believe in that.
Yeah.
So he can't even like look at it, which was hilarious to me.
Yeah.
So I'm totally the opposite. I probably need a little bit more structure. I probably need a little bit more like rigidity because I'm so flowy and I'm flexible, and I flex and flow and glide, and somehow it works out all the time for me. It drives people crazy because they'll be like, hey, are you going to the thing? I'm like, I don't know. I'll see. Like, whatever happens, happens. And then they'll be planning for months and booking the hotel and whatever. And I'll come in like last second. And they're like, hey, what? Oh, I've got this last second flight. It was like totally on sale. I got paid like $99. My hotel room was free because of my air miles, like all these things, right? And they're like, I planned for 6 months and I'm paying triple what you're paying. I'm like, I know. There's more than one way. There's more than one way.
So Dave, what's kind of the future for you? What are your dreams?
Oh, man, thanks for asking that. That's a beautiful question. I've been thinking a lot about it lately. I have to get in front of more people. I don't have to be ninja on all my stuff. I used to work with only one-on-one clients, private, very famous people. Nobody would know. I would never tell anybody. I only work with one-on-one people. And during COVID, I started working with groups of people. And then I started doing these free challenges and free trainings. And then that's when things really kind of blew up for me. And, we crossed this 7-figure mark for the first time. And like, I did that by accident. I was just trying to help people. And then it kind of went crazy. And then that kind of freaked me out. So then I pulled back. I'm like, okay, I gotta get this organized here. Like, there's so many people. I have to have better systems, and I have to be able to follow up with them. And I need a team, and I need all these things, which I'm still managing. My vision would be a way for me to continue to impact and share this information on the highest level, but not have to be there day to day grinding it out, but also still have my one-on-ones because I love those interactions, but maybe in a way that is more efficient. I believe I have multiple books in me because I have so much information, and I only could get out 248 pages worth. I probably have 5,000 pages of data and notes and experiences that I've never shared, I've never told, that have value. So I'd like to be an example for my kids about what's possible, and an example for my community. And
how old are your kids?
I have a 17, a 15, and a 13.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So they're at this impressionable age now.
For sure.
Both the boys travel hockey teams. So that's like 3 or 4 hours a day.
Oh, so you're okay with your kids playing hockey?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Listen, I'm okay with everything that happened to me. Like, honestly, it sounds nuts.
I know.
Like, every blessing that I have, even this stuff now, is because of the hockey.
Yeah.
And it gave me, I don't think that was my purpose in life at all. I think it was a way to give me a voice, to put me on a soapbox and let me share information that I received with other people, and maybe skip the line a little bit when it comes to like speaking gigs and stuff like that. People like to have an athlete on. So what if that was my whole thing? Yeah, I got to have 20,000 people stand up and cheer when I played well and my team played well. But what if it's really meant to be like hundreds of thousands or millions of people hearing one thing, or a TED talk, or or if they made my book into a movie or something? Like, what would that impact look like? And that's the cool part, is like, it's unlimited. And I have like I don't even have it dialed in yet.
As we're winding down here, Dave, what one message or messages would you have for our audience if they want to become a high performance person, if they want to have a more fulfilled life, if they want to have an energized, fully alive life?
Fear is not real. Your gold is on the other side of the thing that you're afraid to do the most. There's no growth in certainty. The answer you're looking for is not in anything safe or certain. It's beyond where you've been. So allow yourself to believe that anything is possible, because I truly believe that. I've seen it. I've seen it so many times. I'm living testament to it. I've done it over and over personally, and my clients do it over and over. Things that seem absolutely impossible become possible. And then once you see that, you start to believe it. It's like that engineer brain. It's like, well, I don't believe that. But then you see it and you're like, oh man, what was that? Okay, well, maybe that can happen. And you see it again and again, and you're like, whoa, okay, maybe there's something else going on here that I don't quite know or understand.
Dave, thank you so much for being here, sharing your story, your wisdom. It's an honor and kind of a just such an honor, privilege to have you show up on our Gratitude podcast. Thank you very much.
Hey, you're welcome, brother. God bless you. And, good luck to all your listeners. I hope I can help them or support them with this message or anything else that they need.
Okay. And we'll have all your contact information for anyone that might want to come to one of your retreats or reach out to have some one-on-one superstar coaching, all-star coaching, and stay cool over there in Arizona.